Welcome to this session, dear students. Now I am going to give you a model answer for one past paper question. This time literature paper 2024 January exam. Question number 7, part C. Identify the short story that in your view provides the best critical analysis of women's resistance to gender norms, and write a short introduction to the story highlighting this aspect. Note that you first need to justify your selection of the story through a brief comparison with the other stories in your syllabus. Right. Now, using my one, you can develop your own answer. Right. I made an answer like this. In considering and analyzing short stories in the angle of gender norms, no doubt Action and Reaction by Chitra Fernando, which is a Sri Lankan experience in writing in English, can be identified the best representation of the said gender norms. One of the peculiar traits in this short story is that the writer succeeds in interpreting the woman's resistance to gender norms through its female protagonist, whom Mahinda, the narrator of the story, says is Lokunanda. She is also attributed by the village monk as Payagala Hamini, who is the chief donator to the temple. Every human being is vested with a gender norm, which is natural as well as universal. Universally accepted gender norm is that female beings should live with male beings in order to denote the survival of the world. That is, of course, very common for the entire world, for humans as well as animals. The progress of the world depends on the union of male and female, which is a constant truth that cannot be defeated. When we compare the short story Action and Reaction with the rest of the short stories in our syllabus, the perspective of women's resistance to gender norms is vividly evident here. For instance, the protagonist is James Joyce Evelyn. By that name does not resist a woman gender role. Her vulnerable point is that she fails in implementing her decision, because we are asked to compare it. The same concept of women resisting gender norms cannot be seen in the interpreter of Melodies by Jhumpa Lahiri. Right. In the story, Meena is married and she has 3 children, Ronnie, Bobby and Tina. She spends a family life and her problem is an unexpected sexual union that gave her the second boy, which is still a secret for husband. A woman's resistance for gender norms cannot be seen in it. The problem with the protagonist is that short story Cat in the Rain is some mismatching in the marriage and the protagonist's difficulty in proceeding with the marriage with a silent and reserved husband. Therefore, when interpreting and analyzing women's resistance of gender norms, my selection of Chitra Fernando's short story Action and Reaction is not disavowed. Within a new para, in order to produce a critical approach to women's resistance to gender norms, Lokunanda's character is more suitable since she openly denies female gender norms. In clear words, gender norms or gender role is a set of socially accepted behaviors and attitudes deemed appropriate or desirable for individuals based on their sex. The gender norms that the protagonist resists in the short story Action and Reaction is definitely marriage. Marriage is what Lokunanda abhors and refrains from. Every woman possesses a universal obligation to subscribe the progress of the world through offsprings in a marriage. Actually, that is a common phenomenon for the entire human world, and the commonness is obeying that. Not only for women, but also for men, that is the common nature. We hear the entire story of Action and Reaction through Mahinda, the narrator's flashback of his family. That he speaks of his father's elder sister's character and her life story with a lot of compassion and sympathy towards her. Her abnormal behavior attempts to make her redempt from her human world responsibility through her penchant to be with meritorious activities with temple. Her behavior cannot be identified as hereditary, as her siblings are married and having children too. Her arrogant character makes her detest males. According to Mahinda, Lokunanda maintained a safe distance from males, though they were the close relatives. This is a point that suggests that she is also a misanthrope. Her own resistance to women's gender norms also endows to her own younger sister, whom the narrator says Punchinandan, then to her servant Kusuma. Punchinanda involuntarily absorbs her elder sister's values and attitudes and takes after the elder sister. Thus she too remains unmarried. Therefore Punchinanda and Kusuma also become the guinea pigs of the wrong misconception of gender norms of females. It is not confirmed that Punchinanda deciding to remain a spinster is her own actual will. That could not be so, simply because she dies of a heart attack early in her life. However, Kusuma remaining unmarried is not her own will, but the intention of taking revenge on her mistress for breaking her romantic affair with Piyadasa. Lokunanda asks Martin Mudalail to send Piyadasa away from his boutique, so that Piyadasa goes to Gaul and gets married the girl there. He never comes to Payagala after that incident. The protagonist rejecting Kusuma marrying and spending a family life is also a point of women resisting to gender norms. She brings Kusuma from Mathura when she is about 8, head full of lies, legs sawed, as a daughter to be adopted. Females often attempt to settle marriages for their girls in their suitable age, but Lokunanda does the opposite. New para. What does Lokunanda's behavior do good for herself? Question mark. Is she benefited from that? Question mark. Her evening of life is full of tragic failure. Her full-time occupation to religion does good nothing to her. Instead of that, she becomes like a prisoner in the hand of Kusuma, being restricted to a wheelchair like a pauper. She who led an affluent life with money and other assets now lives in fear for Kusuma with no her own powers. Neither Buddhism nor monks appear for her. If Lokunanda married and had children, she would not envisage such a lugubrious situation, since she would have been looked after by her own children. The other thing is that Kusuma promised to be Lokunanda's servant even after marriage. She did not agree with Kusuma and worked to retain Kusuma a spinster to contend with the mistress in religion. If Kusuma was permitted to marry Piyadasa, at least our protagonist would have the help of Kusuma's family. In conclusion, what is seen as a constant guide in the human world is the acceptance of universal norms without resisting them. That is why women's resistance to gender norms can be evident in the character of Payagala, the protagonist of the Action and Reaction by Chitra Fernando. Right. Use this as a sample and write your own answer. Right. Goodbye.